In the 2026 Men's College Baseball World Series of the game against Georgia and Texas, there was something specific that happened that I wanted to highlight and share my perspective on as I've experienced it in the past myself. What's up, guys? My name is Nico Rapkos. I used to be a college baseball player, and I went through something called the yips. And basically, what that means is that when pressure arises, then the player in question succumbs to that pressure and that fear and simply can't make simple plays that they normally did their entire life. For me, it was my senior year of high school. We were highly touted to win the state title, and in fact, our sophomore year we got second, and our junior year we got fifth. And so it was our mission since we started high school to win the state championship. And so if we did not win the state title our senior year, it was an absolute bust. And so you can see how there was a lot of pressure. And so for whatever reason, not really exactly sure, I froze. And basically I was a second baseman, and this was my position my senior year. Before that, I was always playing third base. So it was just a little bit of a different shift. But anyways, it was about like the halfway through my very first game. It was a little chilly out. For whatever reason, my throw to first base, it was just shot. I couldn't do it. It was like I kept spiking into the ground, or I would throw it over the first base's head. And then it got worse and worse and worse and worse throughout the rest of the year. So I wanted to share all of that to give a little bit of context on what actually happened, because now that I've unpacked this after 20 years ago, we actually, in fact, did win the state title. Fortunately, even though I tried to sabotage it significantly. But again, I saw something happen the other night in the Georgia-Texas game that I thought was pretty interesting, and I just want to give my lens on it and help you guys understand that if you've ever experienced anything like this yourself, because it is fairly common in the baseball world. Even a gentleman named Chuck Knobloch is probably one of the most renowned people that developed this when in his professional career. He was also playing second base, and he would start throwing it in the stands, and it virtually ended his career. So what is actually going on when you develop the yips, and how can you alleviate that? And what was the specific play in the College World Series that had this happening to one of the guys in the game? So one of the games, the game, Texas versus Georgia, there was several errors in one inning. And so what that happened is that the catcher for Texas, he was going down to block. It was a third strike, and it was a very easy throw. He picked it up, and all he had to do is throw it to first base. One of the simplest throws in all of baseball. Again, you can see the parallel here. But one of the simplest throws in all of baseball, just picks it up, throws it into right field, right? And so there's a correlation here too that I wanted to share too, and this is what we teach a lot of our entrepreneurs, and how powerful the mind is. Because again, I have a very unique lens on all of this, because I saw how powerful the mind was in the negative light, everything I'm talking about in terms of what I experienced with the yips, as well as the positive. Because a couple years later, I had a really cool transformation, excuse me, where I would start visualizing myself hitting home runs off the scoreboard, and that kind of stuff would start happening. Okay, so I started seeing this correlation between how powerful the mind was depending on how we used it. So in addition to the short throw that the catcher missed and threw it into right field, there was another play, practically like two plays later, where it was another strike three. They got that batter out as well. So they ultimately gave the other team, Georgia, which you literally cannot do for the third best team in the entire country, gave them 5 outs that inning. Like those 2 outs should have been the inning, right? So he threw another one. He was a little bit more rushed on this one. It was a little bit of a longer throw, and he still hucked it into right field, right? So that can't happen at that type of level if you guys really expect to win, and ultimately Texas ended up losing. So what happened with this catcher? What happened with me, and how did I resolve this? Well, first and foremost, is, again, like I said, it's a lot of times it's one of the easiest throws. You'll even notice that pitchers, the best throwers in the entire game, they will even have trouble throwing it over to first base because it is such an easy throw. Yet they can throw 97 down the pipe and then hook them off with a curveball or a slider or changeup. So ultimately, what's happening is that you see a play in your head, and then it's like it's already installed into you right there. Boom. You've got that image in your head. And so if you know anything about self-image psychology by a guy named Dr. Maxwell Maltz, he had a really interesting experience, and he wrote a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, because what he started doing is he was a plastic surgeon. People would come to him with a cleft lip or something going on where they didn't see themselves as a good-looking human, and they wanted to be fixed. So he would chop them up, he would cut them up a little bit, and he would make them absolutely beautiful. And then after the surgery, they would look in the mirror and they would feel no different. And so ultimately, what I'm saying here, and what Dr. Maxwell Maltz proved through this self-image psychology, is that you will never perform outside of the way you see yourself. And so when these baseball players, me included, would see myself as a player that crumbled under the fear, saw this simple play, but one time replayed, oh, I throw this ball into right field, or I throw this ball over the first baseman, then that is installed in there. And it can just continue to amplify and amplify and amplify, rerunning those tapes over and over and over again, which is ultimately what these patients of Dr. Maxwell Maltz would do. Is they would see themselves as ugly. They would see themselves as ugly. They would see that they would over and over and over and over and over again. They would do it so many times that was their reality. That was their truth, and that's what they saw. Now, in addition, on a stage like baseball, in my case, the state title, or this case in the College World Series, is that it's amplified with pressure. Okay, so what this really gets into is in the nervous system. We have this nervous system that goes all across our body, and I want you to think about it as like your battery. And so if your nervous system is fried, your battery isn't going to work, and your whole system is going to lock up and tighten and tense. We all know when we are a more relaxed, confident version of ourselves, we can literally do anything. When we're, I think about this one too, is like they talk about the old lady that, not an old lady, but a mom that like needed to pick up a car in order to save her children, and she did it. Wasn't thinking, wasn't in her head, just used her body, boom, lifted it up. And so you'll notice that the best athletes in the world, when they get into a flow state, that means that they're in their body. That means they're not thinking. That means they're not up here, right? But so many athletes, if they start succumbing to the fear and the pressure, what ends up happening is that all their nervous system shoots up into their mind. They stay right here. They're out of their body completely. And then they're running those tapes that, hey, I can't make this throw. Hey, I'm going to throw this ball over the first base. And then it just keeps on replaying, amplifying. That speeds up. And then all of a sudden, like your body tenses up. And for me, it was like really tough to even like hold the baseball because I was so tight and I was so tense. Okay. So that's exactly what happened. And it was a version of what I saw for the Texas catcher. Now, fortunately, I don't think that he like really dropped into his head where he couldn't get out, because like he was even having a conversation with one of the coaches that particular inning, and I saw him like relax, and his face was just like a lot more calm. And so I think for the moment he kind of got into that mode where he developed a slight yips for that particular inning, but then there was a couple other throws later in the game that he nailed. So fortunately for him, it didn't like get so tight up there and his body lock up so much that I don't think it affected him moving forward. But again, for people like Chuck Knobloch, that ultimately ended his career, was because he just like he kept on squeezing tight, getting up his head, replaying that. Every time you get a throw, boom. And that's what would happen. So what is the anecdote to this? How can you dissolve this if this is happening to you or anybody that you know and love? Well, first and foremost is you have to calm the nervous system. And this is a practice, okay? So ultimately, you want to get very present and in your body, okay? We talk a lot on this channel, and I talk to entrepreneurs on this channel about regulating your nervous system, getting into your body, having a strong meditative practice, because that's really what it is. Like, if I were to give myself advice, my 18-year-old self in that state title tournament, the simplest thing that I would tell him to do is to have a strong meditative practice so that you could get back into your body and get calm and get relaxed. Okay? Taking big deep breaths. And making that a practice all throughout the day. And it's not just like having a meditation practice and then going back to the rest of the day, but it's taking that meditation practice to the rest of your day and, in this case, your games. So what I would highly recommend is I would make a strong meditative practice at least 10 to 20 minutes a day in the morning or at night. And then I would take that practice and basically take it into the rest of my day, which is ultimately just a mindfulness practice. So how can I be the most present all throughout the day? As I make in this video, how do I stay solely focused on this camera, which is then going to allow other people to watch this video? Like, how do I stay focused right here and not thinking about something over here in the past, in the future? How do I stay right here as much as possible? And how do I focus on my breath, my breathing? Just, I know it's super simple and it should be more complex than that, but that's what happens, is like the mind wants to make it complex, but you stay in the body's like they say, talk about it's 1,000 times more powerful when you're in your body. And they back this up by so much research. I just finished this book. I did a YouTube video on it. It's called The Art of Impossible. And it was talking a lot about flow and how the highest performance athletes are always, they are the ones that are in a flow state the most often, which basically means that they're in their body. They're not thinking in their head. They're not getting tight. They're not getting tense. They're just there. They're experiencing it. They're right there. And it was funny too, because I ended up meeting someone talking about this, and he had experienced the yips, and he knows a friend that like helps all these athletes with the yips. And that's what he teaches everybody. And what he was saying in his hockey career is that he would get into these states where he was so meditative and present and mindful that he wouldn't even like realize what he was doing, but he would be doing all these crazy things where he would make these shots from ridiculous distances, and he would do all these like triple dekes and whatever it was, but it was like he didn't even realize what he was doing because he was in such a state of flow and he was just in his body. So again, coming back to this, make it a practice, and make it a practice to just continue to relax and release any tension. So I notice for me, like whenever I'm meditating, I know that there's some face muscles that get really tight and get really tense. And so it's just a practice of noticing that and then letting it go. So it's like goes like, ooh. And it's not, I'm exaggerating here, but like this, and I just relax, release it. And if they tense up a little bit, I release it. Tense up a little bit, I release it. And it's this practice of being aware, noticing it, and releasing it. Another practice that I think I've shared on this channel, but this is another one that I learned from an energetics coach. But he would say is like, notice when you're getting in your head. So this is exactly what I would do if I was still playing baseball. But I would notice when I'm in my head right here, just notice all those thoughts, tighten up, tensen up, looking at that story, looking at that image of me throwing all, and what I would do is I would just go take a big deep breath in and pull it apart. So as opposed to it getting so dense and tight in here, I would just pull it out. And then from there, I'd pull it down. All right. So those are a few of the couple first things that I would do to just make sure that I'm in a more of a relaxed, calm, resourceful state. And then from there, now I can use creative visualization. So what Dr. Maxwell Maltz would do is he would have them get into that relaxed state. And then from there, he would have them visualize the type of person that they wanted to be. Right. And in my case, I would do that in baseball. That's why I had that transformation a couple of years later where, I was playing in college and I would visualize myself. I would be in a calm, grounded, resourceful state. I would be very meditative. I would be very mindful. And then from there, I would visualize myself hitting, just rocketing balls off the 7 of the scoreboard. And then what do you know? That kind of stuff would happen because I would do it over and over and over again. And that's when the subconscious is the most open. That's the most receptive. Right as soon as you're waking up, right as soon as you're going to bed. So what I would do, especially if I was ever in any sort of funk, I would always do that every day. Like I would see myself playing just absolute lights out, perfect, like rocketing home runs, double, triple, diving catch, all these things. I would do that right as soon as I wake up, right as soon as I was going to bed, because that's when the subconscious is the most open and receptive, and that's when these new memories and visualizations and everything is stored. It gets stored into your body, and you actually start believing it. And that's a big reason. It's actually, in fact, the main reason why we started our company, Vision Espresso, which basically takes that whole process and just turns it into a system so that you don't have to think about, oh, I got to visualize, I got to do this, I got to calm, I got to relax. We've just built it into a system that takes less than 10 minutes a day. So if you want to check it out, it all starts with the vision quiz. You can click on the link down below. It's visionespresso.co. It takes you about 20 minutes to finish, and it'll help you increase your clarity. Some people have increased their clarity by up to 108% in less than 20 minutes. Okay, so that's the gist of it all, guys. Thanks for watching this video. I just thought it was very interesting. I've been very enthused with the whole College World Series this year, and I was really excited about that Texas-Georgia game, which was it was a really good game, but Texas definitely obviously made some mistakes that cost them the game, and you can't do that against a great team like Georgia. So wanted to give my 2 cents on that. I've always felt like at some point I will get back into athletics and helping guys with this type of stuff, because there's more guys that experience this than you think, and it's very frustrating, as I personally know. So thank you for watching this video, guys. Make sure and subscribe, share this with a friend that has gone through the yips, and have an amazing day. Talk to you soon.